Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Hi everyone, welcome to Priority Holder, and today we'll be playing Eggs in the Timeless format. So this is an archetype I've played a couple times before, but now we have not only the fast mana of Ancient Tomb and Dark Ritual, but we have Mox Opal. So together those allow us some really cracked starts. We can turbo out stuff. So the idea is to put some cost reducers into play like Semblance Anvil or Cloud Key, and eventually land a Mystic Forge and chain a bunch of spells off the top of your deck. And once you've stormed off enough, you can shoot them with Aetherflux Reservoir. So let's jump into some games. Alright, so this hand is tough. It generates a ton of mana, but it doesn't really go anywhere, and we don't really love starting with Reservoir early on. We usually like finding it later on, once we have the cost reducers in play and a Mystic Forge online. So I'm thinking about what to bottom. I put the Reservoir on the bottom because we usually find those later on once we're sort of set up. I like this hand a lot better than the first one because we have the cost reducers already lined up. And in the strip mine era, you have to always be conscious about lands, So we do have a lot of fast mana, but if the opponent drops a strip mine next turn, we need to make sure we keep enough mana sources. All right, so first when I see the red-white land, I'm like, okay, this is an energy deck. But usually they're playing a companion of some sort. But now we see it's a Jeskai deck. Now they don't have mana drain mana up, but they could have mana leak mana up. So One Ring seems really good as an engine, and I'm just going to try and start drawing cards. The Spare Supplies is going to eat a spell snare though, so we're fine with that. That's not an important piece. The main thing is resolving a Semblance Anvil. Okay, so the opponent's going to go Tamiyo into Brainstorm, which is going to immediately flip it. And we're not really that threatened by Tamiyo. We're never going to really attack on this deck. So the opponent is just going to start adding loyalty. Now they're out of blue mana, so it means we're safe, barring Mana Tithe or something crazy like that. So Spare Supplies on top seems pretty good. Now we can draw it right now with the Chromatic Star to have another, if we wanted to tuck the Spare Supplies under our Semblance Anvil. But yeah, so it basically, you have to calculate how likely the Semblance Anvil is going to get blown up. If this was an energy deck, I'd be really cautious about Static Prison, because Semblance Anvil represents so much mana for us. And against how many colors they're running, you have to think about Leyline Binding and stuff. But anyway, ended up tucking Semblance Anvil under there. We're gonna get domed by Flage. Tamiyo's marching up in loyalty, and the opponent could have a solo blue mana up. We've already seen Spell Snare, so we have to be a little careful. Gonna put the Cloud Key out there because that just opens up a lot more mana for us. And so trying to think about how to sequence this. Seems pretty clear to play the One Ring. Now you have to watch out for the auto tapper, because let's say we draw a Demonic Tutor with the One Ring, the auto tapper would have screwed us out of that. So for some reason the mana gets a little weird. So just be paying attention to how the auto tapper is tapping you with these filter lands. It goes a little crazy sometimes. Gonna play the Lembas because it's free and can inform us about where we're going. We do need a Mystic Forge at some point. Now, One Ring, we already have an extra One Ring in hand, so I'm going to go ahead and bottom it. It was a guaranteed draw, but you do actually need the rings to survive sometimes. For mana efficiency, I'm going to crack Spare Supplies, and it's just land. So we're out of gas, and now it's the opponent's turn. So they're going to crack the fetch into a Surveil, and they, wisely get rid of a removal spell. But it actually gets them already loaded up for Flage if they wanted. But the opponent's just going to drop their own One Ring and draw off that. Now the thing is, this is why Tamiyo's so good. The opponent is already up to 8 loyalty, and it's only 7 for its ultimate, which draws half your deck, gives you no max hand size. So it's an insanely strong ultimate. Now this is where I make a sequencing mistake here. I'm so used to preserving mana for cracking Candy Trails and stuff that I lead with Cloud Key. But given our life total and the number of spells we had in hand, I should have led with the 2 reservoirs, even though it's less mana efficient, because then we would have already been getting these life gain triggers chaining. We could march up past 50 life. So I think that was a sequencing mistake out of just habit of preserving mana, you know. Like, if we had candy trails in play, sure, like, you could see the argument for that, but we didn't have any of those in play. So, and that's the reason I hesitate so long on this Semblance Anvil right here, because we're at 37 life. I'm like, oh shoot, how many spells do we cast? And like, start counting it up, and like, we can't quite clear 50, and so I'm like, all right, let's try and find something better. And that's where I run into another land. And I'm looking here to see if there's anything I can crack to get one more card, but there's nothing left. And so, had I changed the sequencing, had I left with the reservoirs, and had we could have kept the Semblance Anvil, and actually, I calculated out, I think we could have had like 56 life, which allowed us, you know, we could set an upkeep stop. Once the ring protection wears off, try and shoot them. Now, there is a lot of risk in that, because Stifle's super popular in Timeless, and so if the opponent just stifles that, then we're in like big trouble, you know. So, I ended up just putting Jegantha into hand as like just a spell to have next turn, and just passing back to the opponent. But the opponent has now ultimated Tamiyo and has access to like a million cards. So that was just like devastating to pass to the opponent in that situation. And at first I'm like, oh, tune the narrative, like, oh, they're just drawing more cards, who cares about that? Well, that turns out that wasn't the reason why they did that. They were using it as an energy ritual so they can nuke us with Wrath of the Skies. And so you can see how small choices really can make a big difference. Had I changed up my sequencing, we could have attempted the kill on their untap, you know, upkeep. Instead, we got sent back to the Stone Ages, so we still have the one ring. But I'm just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do against like 30 cards in hand, and we have too many lands? Like, it's going to take a miracle. And the thing is, they probably have another Wrath of the Skies in hand anyway, so I'm pretty dejected at this point, but I'm going to just keep playing it out, because we're not dead yet, and we at least have a pretty high life total against what appears to be sort of a controlling deck, so we've bought ourselves turns at least. Now this is a very interesting scry right here. We have both Demonic Tutor and Reservoir. Now Reservoir, we're sort of far off that. We have you know, just a Cloud Key as our cost reducer, so we're not really ready to chain off, and we don't have a Mystic Forge. But Demonic Tutor seems like the way we can sort of get ourselves out of this, by drawing it and using it to grab a Mystic Forge to really try and go off. Now I should have paid better attention to the black mana here. You can see the auto tapper purposely used a swamp. Now thankfully we still have a land drop so we can cast the Demonic Tutor, but that's once again a reason you have to be really careful with the auto tapper when you have a lot of these filter lands. So just going to grab a Mystic Forge, and we are short mana casting it, so we have to pass back to the opponent. And honestly, the hard part for the opponent right now is navigating like a 30-card hand. You know, like they have tons of options. It's, you know, just gotta hope they don't have a lot of fast mana to really like utilize their hand well. So I was feeling pretty good at 39 life, but then the opponent drops an Arena of Glory and escapes their Flage. And Flage, especially with haste, is an exceptionally fast clock. So that's 12 damage the opponent dealt out of nowhere this turn. And you could see like our life total, which seemed pretty robust, is not going to last us very long under that kind of assault. Alright, so we draw a Mox Opal, which could be helpful. Now I'm worried right now about like some sort of counterspell ruining our day. Okay, so that's an excellent draw. So Dark Ritual, another cost reducer. So I'm trying to be really careful right here, navigating whatever potential counterspells the opponent might have. So I'm going to lead a Dark Ritual, and then I'm sort of just testing the waters for counterspells. Cloud Key opens up more mana for us also. So Cloud Key resolves. The main thing we want is Mystic Forge to resolve. And going to just use the auto tapper to preserve some black mana just in case. So it all comes down to this. If we can get this Mystic Forge in play, then we have a chance. And it does resolve. Okay, so now we can finally start casting stuff off the top. And Mox Opal is like a game changer for this deck. I was already sort of testing it with Chrome Mox, like loading up with the MDFCs, and like it just was a little too painful. But then like once we got Mox Opal, I was like, that's exactly what this deck needed. Like just an extra boost of speed, because not only is Mox Opal like independently powerful, but it makes our Dark Rituals better also, because we run just a minimal amount of black sources. So having Mox Opals, anyway, it's an incredible power boost, especially with Ancient Tomb as well. So we get to use Ancient Tomb, Dark Ritual, and Mox Opal in this deck. So some of the broken fast mana, we get to put it all in here. Alright, so Candy Trail is going to set up the top of our deck. We're going to keep casting. And so, and this has been a crazy game, because this is us rebuilding post Wrath of the Skies, you know. So there's the Reservoir, but we also have a Semblance Anvil in hand, which on the top of our deck, which if we can get that in play, then we can reduce everything down to 0. Now I'm not sure what the opponent, like, they definitely have tap, draw cards off ring, you know, like, I don't know what else they have. Like, they could also have like a Stifle, so I'm trying to be careful here. And Reservoir resolves. So now we've already cast a ton of spells this turn, so we should be able to start getting, yeah, so that was a 10-point life gain right there off one spell. So we should be able to cruise pretty quickly into high life total. So here comes another Mox Opal. If you have one in play, make sure you at least float the mana off the previous one before just blindly casting it, you know. And we need to clear the top of the deck again. So we have an existing Mystic Forge, so I'm going to clear the top of the deck, and it's a Dark Ritual. So now I'm going to play another copy of Mystic Forge. And the thing is, like, we haven't, you know, I'm really worried, like, I don't want to lose to like a Stifle or something, but I also don't really want the opponent to like untap, so I'm trying to go as far as we can. And thankfully we keep managing to like get past land and like Dark Ritual pockets. So I'm going to start accelerating here. So I'm not trying to like run up the score or anything. I'm trying to get enough to have a couple activations of Reservoir banked in the case of like a Stifle or something crazy like that. So this is me just padding the life total to be able to like Reservoir in response to Reservoir if it's needed. So this is me forgetting to float the black mana, but we didn't really need mana at that point. So now that we have multiple activations up, I'm going to direct the cannon at them, see if they have anything, and they didn't. So the first opponent falls, we're into the next game. So that was just awesome, coming back after like a Wrath of the Skies. Alright, another artifact deck across the table. Seed of the Synod, Mox Amber, Emery. So I'll go ahead and link an artifact deck of my own right here. Well, another one, because I play lots of different artifact decks. Gonna lead with Hidden Grotto and get, well, the Mystic Forge could be pretty good, so I end up keeping that on top. Now there is a trick you can do in this deck. You can go Ancient Tomb, cast Chromatic Star, use this other mana to crack Chromatic Star to fix for Dark Ritual to get like turn 1 Semblance Anvils, you know, so that was definitely an option here. And as the opponent does their artifact shenanigans, if you enjoy seeing artifact decks in action, please kill switch the like button. So the opponent is just going to fire off a Thought Cast, and it seems like they had a heavy mulligan, you know, so they look like they also run low mana sources, considering like they're running like Mox Ambers and stuff like that. So they haven't put us under much pressure yet. Now the thing is, you know, artifact decks can really go off like crazy, so which we're hoping to do right now. So we're going to fire off a Dark Ritual off the Chromatic Star, put a Semblance Anvil into play to get things going. Ancient Tomb and plus Mox Opal means like this deck can really go off quickly. So the question is what to tuck under. It seems like Chromatic Star is the least useful now. Now in the early game, I typically like to lead with if I have the choice between One Ring and Mystic Forge, I usually lead with One Ring, because that's just more like raw cards, and like if you don't have enough cost reduction out, Mystic Forge can sometimes just make you sort of just brick for a while. So decided to lead with Candy Trail to get more information, and I'm glad I did, because now we can Lembas the Cloud Key into our hand and get that into play also, because we can cast that off Ancient Tomb and still have the choice of either Mystic Forge or One Ring, and just be that much closer to having all of our spells be free. Now, given that we have this much cost reduction now, I'm going to go ahead and play the Mystic Forge, because we could get some other 0 mana plays, you know, like Lembas right now. There is an argument to keeping Demonic Tutor to, like, you know, use it as a shuffle, plus like to get like something really good next turn. But we're going off right now anyway, somewhat. Candy Trail is really clutch. We get these 2 lands out of here, and we got to see if we can keep chaining. All right, then we hit an Ancient Tomb. We can clear the top with Mystic Forge, and then we hit another land. So that is it. So I'm setting an upkeep stop on myself in case I want to clear the land off the top with Mystic Forge. In all likelihood, I'm going to. So Alright, the opponent's going to recast the bauble off Emery. Alright, they have another blue source finally. Alright, so they have a Tameo. So they're using Mox Amber off the power of Tameo and Emery. And Thoughtcast also works really nicely with Tameo as like a way to flip her, you know. So opponent's starting to go off now. We've seen the power of Tameo already. So Tormod's Crypt. I like that the artifact deck of Cross from us can get enough value off Tormod's Crypt to run it main deck and just really annihilate the graveyard decks that they come across. So, alright, so there's the Aetherflux Reservoir. So I'm going to move to accelerated speed here because, you know, there's just a lot of game actions you have to take to actually get above 50 life, you know. So it gets to the point where it's, you know, the thing is this is like a non-deterministic combo, you know. So like we're relying on like keeping hits out the top of the deck. Anyway, the opponent has seen enough. They saw the writing on the wall. But eventually gets to the point where like you can get there. So I'm going to do the trick I talked about. Oh, actually no. I'm not going to do it. Actually no. I stopped myself from doing it. I'm like, wait a second. I can do the Chromatic Star Dark Ritual trick. It only gets like a Cloud Key out, which is not as potent as a Semblance Anvil. But you could see I was about to just run out a Candy Trail. But I like doing this better. It is in the dark, like no companion information. But it seems pretty dang good to get a cost reducer out there, and it also lets us play our Candy Trail anyway, because it's going to reduce it down to 0. So we're going to get our Cloud Key out there, drop a Candy Trail, and then move on from there. Alright, so another Cloud Key, and you can see me about to get rid of the Swamp. Like, the thing is, like, there's so many Strip Mine decks running around, so that's why I'm hesitating, because, like, do I want the land just in case? But, alright, so the opponent's going to crack their fetch and play a Dragon's Rage Channeler. Okay, so back to us. So we have another cost reducer, but we don't have like any like real card draw engines yet. We do have 2 Lembases though, which could go a long way towards like helping us get everything online. So I'm gonna play the Cloud Key off the Ancient Tomb and just start Lembasing to look for stuff. Mox Opal, as strong as that is, like it's not what we're looking for right now. So we're going to bottom that. We're trying to find like a One Ring or Mystic Forge. Dark Ritual, not super needed at the moment. Sometimes we need a burst of mana here and there. Alright, so there's the Mystic Forge, which is what we're looking for. So, going to keep that on top. Unfortunately, we're down to just 1 colorless mana. If we had some way to fix for black, we can get the Mystic Forge out there and possibly even win this turn, you know. So, but we have to pass back to the opponent. Alright, and they play a Cori Steelcutter. I actually have toyed with that card recently, so I'll go and post the Cori Steelcutter deck of my own. It's very powerful. Feels like we're doing pretty good though. Our lands haven't been strip mined, and like we found some stuff we want. So the opponent does represent shelling out a ton of damage though. Like if they can hit Delirium and then get Cori Steelcutter going. So we do have to be careful with all this ancient tombing we're doing, but have another land on top, which is unfortunate. I'm just trying to decide if I should Candy Trail it or Mystic Forge it. And we end up with another Mystic Forge on top, which would be nice, except our cost reducers are not quite there yet. So as nice it would be, I think we need to bottom it to try and find some more spells. But you can see, like, if you run with all the colorless utility lands you run, like sometimes it makes the Dark Rituals rot in your hand. And we hit a brick right there. So we did find a One Ring, which will be really nice. But we have to see what the opponent can muster this turn. Alright, so they're going to fire off Expressive Iteration, dropping an artifact in the graveyard. A sorcery is also going to hit the graveyard, giving them Delirium. Chromox is going to fire off Cori Steelcutter. And Dragon's Rage Channeler is giving them like a ton of value with all these non-creature spells. So, alright, so they are going to tuck something under the Chromox. There's Mishra's Bauble. And you could see, like, it felt like we were pretty safe, but all of a sudden the opponent is now representing 7 damage at a minimum. So they're going to Brainstorm, and they have Brainstorm Fetch Crack, you know, so it could be pretty nasty for us. And another Chromox, so the opponent has tons of zeros to, like, fire off the prowess. Alright, so they tuck a Treasure Cruise under it. That actually makes me super concerned. It makes me think they have, like, a counterspell in hand to protect them. So here we are at 5 life. And with an Ancient Tomb on top. So the opponent's going to draw off their Bauble, which, you know, they set up with Brainstorm. So I'm thinking about it for a while. I'm like, do I want the Ancient Tomb? And I decide to draw it because if we cast a One Ring, the second Ancient Tomb we tap will be shielded by ring protection. So I'm like bracing myself for like a bolt or something right here. But the opponent has the mana leak, which is super tough because we really needed that One Ring to just give us a little breathing room against them. So that is really unfortunate. So at this point, we only have 4 life. I'm like, okay, well, I gotta just try and get something else on top. And we happen to find another ring. Now, this is the problem, though, is I was hoping to rely on ring protection to shield myself from the second Ancient Tomb. We have to just go head first into it with this One Ring. So we could cast the Semblance Anvil. I decided just to draw it instead. We could cast it later, and now that we drew a Semblance Anvil, we can tuck the other one under it, and so we've gotten full cost reduction, but we've bricked, and we're at 1 life. So as it stands, well, now the opponent has played Oko, things are changing rapidly, but the One Ring wouldn't kill us because our Inventors Fair would save us before it would kill us, you know. Now the One Ring is not even going to deal us damage because the opponent Oko'd it, and so I'm like, alright, like we're almost there. What does the opponent have in hand as their last card? And it's a Lightning Bolt, which, if we had normal lands, wouldn't matter, but Ancient Tomb is just going to kill us. So I thought about that for a while and then realized we're just dead. So if we had just a swamp, we could have gained some life in response and probably even won that turn. So that was, the opponent played that excellent. Like, they shelled out a ton of damage and had like the counter spell and the bolt. Like they did an excellent job there. So props to them. Alright, facing a green mana on the other side, but no play. I like to play out my Mox Opals. I think you're usually in more danger of hand disruption than them getting blown up, but it could change if like the meta shifts, you know, and people start running Prismatic Ending or stuff like that, you know. So it really depends. Candy Trail. So against green, any green deck, you have to, well, I guess any deck in general, you have to watch out for strip mines. And so I run a low land count here, but sometimes you do need to just keep lands on top. Like, I really want to get the One Ring out, and we got to see what the opponent's up to right here. I know, like, to be careful about the green decks now because I play green decks that love to strip mine people, you know, so like that's just something you have to worry about now. So the opponent's going to explore, and there, of course, is the strip mine. So you could see if we like bottomed it, like, oh, we're fine on mana, like, we would have been in big trouble. But now with the Ancient Tomb in hand, we can still get the One Ring in play. So I'll go ahead and link a green strip mine deck of my own right here. It's a fun strategy to play and right now in Timeless. So here's the question: do you One Ring or do you Semblance Anvil to set up for the future? Because we already know there might be more strip mines coming, you know. So I actually thought about it. I'm like, you know what? I think it's better to get the cost reduction online. Then that's going to open up a lot more spells. So I'm going to Semblance Anvil, tuck the Chromatic Star. That way, we're basically like, we can operate on low mana sources if we start getting strip mined, you know. So that was sort of the rationale for that. Alright, the opponent is going to Stone Rain the Ancient Tomb, and as they do that, let me know in the comments, are there any cards or decks that you're interested to see me try out? I can't make any promises, I can't make everything work, but you could put some stuff on my radar at the very least. I know Ren and 6 is on my radar currently. Alright, so the opponent Stone Rains our land, and we see an artifact on top. Going to just play the One Ring, and you can see how valuable it was to get Semblance Anvil out there, because now we can start sort of going off. So we're going to play the Spare Supplies. And I actually like eggs in the face of the strip mine decks because we play so many cost reducers that, like, if you can Dark Ritual like a Semblance Anvil or Cloud Key out, like, you get to the point where you don't really need lands. So, like, sure, the opponent has Ramunap and they're going to blow up our swamp. Like, we honestly don't really care. Like, we have some spare lands in hand, and like our artifacts are mostly free anyway at this point. So we have a draw off Spare Supplies. I decided just to tap the ring first. All right, so we need a Mystic Forge right now. I'm gonna play the Surveil land here. We already have black mana off the Mox Opal, so we don't need to play the Swamp. Semblance Anvil, we're already like halfway to like reducing everything down to 0. what we need is either like another One Ring or a Mystic Forge right now. So just gonna get rid of the Semblance Anvil, even though we haven't like fully cost reduced. And just gonna play out the Aetherflux Reservoir. Like, I don't know, there is some argument to like keeping it in hand, like against a deck that could like blow it up. But decide to just play it here. That's me thinking like, do I need to fire off the Dark Ritual or just to gain some life off the reservoir? But I decided no, like we'll get a bunch of cards off the One Ring next turn. We could crack some spare supplies. Like we'll see a lot of cards next turn. All right, Birds of Paradise from the opponent. All right, they're gonna strip mine one of our lands. So like they technically have us under a strip mine lock right here, but like I said, I think Eggs is somewhat well set up for this kind of thing because we don't really care about having lands in play at a certain point in the game. Fomori Vault is really interesting. I actually thought about adding a second copy of it to this deck. The reason I didn't, honestly, is because I'm like really short on Mythic Wild cards right now. Like shelling out for Mox Opals and Wrenn and 6s after having just shelled out for Ancient Tombs and Strip Mines, you know. So like, I think you really could value a second copy of Fomori Vault, but in general, utility lands, their value has just gone down in the format because of Strip Mine, you know. So sure, you can drop Fomori Vault and like activate it one time, you know, but chances are it's not always going to stick around that long. So we got double reservoirs out, and okay, so now we found the Mystic Forge. I did think about dropping Vault and activating it to try and dig really deep, but that would have exhausted most of our mana, so I decided to go the route that I took instead. So now with double reservoir up and how many spells we can, yeah, the opponent was already dead, so move on to the next game. Alright, Ancient Tomb hand. Alright, opponent leads with the Deathrite Shaman, and they have a Jegantha Companion. So there's Candy Trail. So leading with Ancient Tomb lets us play like a Lembas out, which is like, you could start getting things going, but it's not super exciting. Mox Opal seems perfect because, you know, once again, the opponent's a green deck, you have to be cautious about Strip Mines. So, because Ice Till Explorer is just like a super combo with it. And there's the Strip Mine. So losing Ancient Tomb will be super annoying here, but that's why we kept the Mox Opal on top. And there's another Deathrite Shaman. So let's see if the opponent has something else to play. Alright, they're just going to attack in. Okay. So we draw a land. So we're going to play a Scry land. Candy Trail doesn't seem like what we want right now. Like, it's just it's good once you have like, we have basically everything. We just need the mana to cast right now, you know. So we need some like Dark Rituals or something like that. So we see another Mox Opal and an Inventors Fair. Now, I spend some time thinking about this because, you know, we already have a Mox Opal for one, and how many lands do you keep? I'm going to be play it really conservative right here and keep lands on top because the opponent has already shown Strip Mine. So going to play out Mox Opal. I'm also keeping the Mox Opal on top because at the very least it can function as a Lotus Petal at this point. So there's Wrenn and 6. So another opponent working on or assembling a Strip Mine lock on us. So this is a strategy that I had my eye on. Like I decided to play Eggs first, you know, but you know me, I love mid-range decks, so I'm definitely like playing around with Wrenn and 6. So they're going to nuke our land with the Strip Mine. The thing is, the opponent doesn't have us like under like any pressure right here. So like I'm not sweating losing our lands. Like it is like it's really slowing us down though because we haven't got a Semblance Anvil out. But that's the reason I kept the Mox Opal on top, is because in a pinch we can use it as a Lotus Petal to get a Semblance Anvil out, which can get the ball rolling. So gonna play the new Mox Opal. Make sure you float the mana from the first one. Semblance Anvil. Now I think I make a mistake right here. I think I should just tuck Lembas under it. I end up tucking the One Ring because I'm like, oh well, I can play the Mystic Forge next turn. Like I play Lembas right now, you know, and draw the land. But I think keeping both card draw engines available, especially like the One Ring, like the Fog might be useful, you know. So I think that was just a straight up misplay by me. Like I should have just tucked the Lembas under it and kept the strong card draw engines. They're cool cards also, I guess. All right, they're going to strip mine our land again. And we're going to see if the opponent can increase the clock somehow. So they're going to start chewing up lands from our graveyard. And it'll be interesting to see how well positioned, like, just Jund is. Like, the opponent's playing with Deathrite Shamans, Wrens, and now Barrogoyf. So now, Inventors Fair, which probably isn't long for this world. We're going to play Mystic Forge and nothing. So, going to activate Mystic Forge. And then we have another land on top. So we at least have a candy trail to try and set up the top of the deck. And it's land Semblance Anvil. So we do technically want the Semblance Anvil, but we can't cast it right now. So I'm trying to find another 0 on top, which we do find a candy trail, Ancient Tomb, and a Chromatic Star. Chromatic Star is just a free cast right now. It doesn't like cantrip like some of the other ones because we don't have any more mana. And we're out of gas right now. So, Strip Mine comes back again. Well, actually, no, not Strip. No, they end up eating up their Strip Mine to play a Minskin. And all of a sudden, we're under a much faster clock. So, you know, I was sort of just playing and like leisurely putting out artifacts, but now we're in like the danger zone. And the opponent was just going to kill us next turn if we don't win on our turn. So Barrogoyf goes off a little bit, and the thing is, like, the opponent has a lot of attackers out there. Ren and 6 can chip in some damage, and Minskin can just lob something at our face, you know, so have to watch out. I've actually played Minskin somewhat recently. I'll go ahead and link that deck right here if you want to see my version. So Lembas is nice, but we're just in like the danger zone, so we need like a 1-ring. We need a 1-ring to buy us some time, but the thing is, the opponent can really just keep like stifling our mana. So we have a Aetherflux Reservoir on top. Gonna crack the Chromatic Star as like a mana neutral way to reset the top of the deck, but it's another Dark Ritual. So unfortunately, we are out of gas and out of mana. So the opponent played this super well. Like they strip mine locked us and just sort of slowly put the clock out there until it was like too late for us. So on to the next game. This hand looks super strong though, with Mox Opal and Dark Ritual. Candy Trail doesn't seem as necessary, especially since we have one in hand. So going to, you know, after that, play Candy Trail, Ancient Tomb, and Mystic Forge. So trying to figure out what to do. Like, we want both those cards eventually. But it seems like Ancient Tomb on the top really like opens up some options. Let's see what the opponent does. Opponent starts with the turn 1 Haywire Mite. I'm like, oh my goodness, that is so annoying. So they, for 1 green, they can crack it to exile an artifact or enchantment, which basically is any target in our deck. So I was like, oh, that's annoying. So I'm just gonna play the 1 ring, and I'm just assuming right here, like, all right, the opponent is just going to like untap, exile the 1 ring. Like, we're just gonna get 1 use of it. But we need to get the Haywire Mite off the battlefield because it's very potent against us. Honestly, it's most potent shutting down our cost reducers, because then we just can't, you know, storm off. All right, Trellisar from the opponent. But I was shocked to see that the 1 ring survived until our turn. So like, we'll happily draw some more cards. And now we find some more cost reducers in addition to like having an Ancient Tomb. So I'm going to be careful right here, like once again, preserving black mana in case of Dark Rituals and stuff like that. So we're going to play Cloud Key and Lembas. So we've only like started the cost reduction. I'm not quite there yet. I don't think we want any more Ancient Tombs. We already have 1 in hand. There's a Dark Ritual, which was an amazing draw because that lets us drop Mystic Forge. So the question is, do we drop that or Aetherflux Reservoir, knowing that the opponent has like, you know, face up Haywire Mite? We could have attempted to go a little deeper with Mystic Forge, but with only like 1 Cloud Key out, like there's only so many things we could cast, so I decided just to pass. Alright, Green Sun Zenith. So I haven't tried like the Green Sun Zenith like value package yet, like maybe like toss like a combo in there, like some sort of Scurry Oak thing, you know. So the opponent seems to have like some value creatures. Like, I bet Haywire Mite is probably like a 1-of they've pulled out with Green Sun Zenith to fight 1 rings and other stuff like that, you know. So it could be like a sort of toolbox deck that the opponent has. Alright, but One Ring survives another turn. I'm going to upkeep Mystic Forge to clear the top of the deck, because we already know it's like a dead card. Thankfully we did. There's another land there. Alright, so we're going to eat some damage from the One Ring. So, do have to be a little careful with all these ancient tombs and, like, you know, us not having perfectly gone off yet. I'm going to play a Reservoir and start trying to go off right here. So there's a Mox Opal. Now once again, we only have a cost reduction of 1 right now, so it's not like super efficient, but these Mox Opals help a lot. So you can see me just starting to change stuff. We do eventually find a Semblance Anvil, so we're going to tuck the Mox Opal under it. And we're going to play the Lembas. And I go back to regular speed here because the opponent has finally decided to do something. So they're going to crack their fetch, get a green source, and they're going to Haywire Might the Reservoir. So they've seen where this is going, and now they're going to nuke our Reservoir. So we were well on our way to like firing up the Death Star and nuking them, but now the opponent has halted it. So now what do? I'm going to just draw the Chromatic Star because that's like a free draw. Mystic Forge is another draw. I'm going to just, with the mana here, just play another One Ring just to like protect ourselves from our own Ancient Tomb. So now we can Ancient Tomb, play the Mystic Forge. There's another Cloud Key, so now it's all systems go as far as our cost reduction. And then we see a Demonic Tutor on top. Now we still have a Mox Opal, so I went ahead and drew it off the Chromatic Star and just returning to triple speed again, you know, because like there's just a ton of game actions we're taking. So, you know, use the Demonic Tutor to get the Reservoir. We've cruised up to enough life, and the opponent has seen enough. Well, Eggs is just a fun strategy. I enjoy playing it every single time, and I feel like it just keeps picking up a ton of power. And you'd be hard-pressed to find a deck that makes better use of Mox Opal, Dark Ritual, and Ancient Tomb all in the same package. So I really love like all the fast mana, and I think it really helps unlock the deck. And, you know, we fell to one Strip Mine lock, but we beat another one, you know. So I think the cost reducers really help you in like the Strip Mine battles. Like once the resources get low, like you can still profitably cast spells. So I think it's a reasonable choice in the face of that. But the meta, you know, it's still the Wild West. We keep getting all these new powerful cards, you know, so we'll have to see how the metagame shakes out. I used to put like utility land in the mana base to like as like an alternative win con, like Field of the Dead or Fountain Port, but like in the face of Strip Mine, I just don't think it's worth messing around with that. Gemstone Caverns, I didn't really think it could stomach like all the card disadvantage for this. Maybe it's worth putting in there anyway, just to like spike some really cracked starts, you know. So I'm not sure. There's some other eggs to put in there if you want to like increase the egg density, but I found this to be like a really good starting point. And you could also run Kahira as a companion. I think Jegantha is a little bit better as like being mono-pipped, so we can more easily filter into it, and it punches a little bit harder if you do need to like attack with it. But yeah, that's the deck. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to see even more nonsense, please consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for your support. Your engagement with the channel helps me know what the people want. Thank you.